Oh my God. Welcome back, man. It's the Flight Podcast. We're back at it again. It's 2023.
2023.
Who'd ever thought we'd be here? I think, what was the, remember the Jetsons?
Yes.
What year was that out of? Do we know? I'll look it up.
Look it up. I was just about to say, I feel like the daddy was born in the early 2020s. I feel like when 2020 came around, they was like, such and such Jetson's been born.
Right.
And I think it was because he was born in like 2020. And so his life would have been, post 2020.
Yeah.
So I can see it being like super.
2062.
He was born in 2062?
Well, okay. So I looked up what year was the Jetsons set in. It says 2062.
But what year was he born, though? Because he had a family by 2062 because he turned into a grown man. He was just born, quote unquote, like a couple years ago.
Okay. How old is George Jetson? 40 years old. So yeah.
See what I'm saying? So that's why I'm like.
Well, 2022.
That's what I'm saying. There was a video that was going around. I don't know if you saw it, where it was like George Jetson has just been born. Literally.
Oh, snap.
You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
And it happened whatever year he was born, 2020 or
2022.
That's what I'm saying. So it was this past year. They was like George Jetson was just born. So in 30 years, we'll see flying cars and all. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's
so
crazy.
in our minds, when we was watching that stuff, we were just thinking 2020. Like that was, back in the 90s, that was like unheard of.
Right,
like
of course.
2020. But now we're living in 2020 and it's like, you don't see flying cars.
No.
You see, Uber helicopters.
Well, yeah. Well, you got self-driving cars.
Right.
Now, so.
Now, you do have a lot of technological advances now, but I think that we expected it to be more at this point.
Yeah.
But I think what we were expecting to see in 2020 is what we'll see in like 2040.
Okay.
Like 20 years from now, technology. I mean, think about how much technology has advanced from 2010 to 2020.
Right.
I was a senior in high school with one of the first touchscreens.
Yeah.
You remember the LG chocolate?
The chocolate.
I had one of those.
Yeah.
And then I got the LG Envy, which had the keyboard.
Oh, yeah.
Slide it up with the keyboard. The very next year, HTC dropped the HTC One. That was my very first touch phone.
Okay.
And then it's like every year after that, they just kept upgrading. And it was like, dang, 3 years ago, I just had a flip phone.
Right.
And now we're in this touchscreen era where you get laughed at if you got a flip phone.
Right. But shoot, I mean, this doesn't have much to do with the topic today.
At all.
We're just going to segue into it anyway. Well, let me try. Hold on. So everybody had a different type of phone, which met your needs. Let's see, we'll try to dress this up here. How do I match this in with freedom? Freedom to choose.
I was just about to say power to choose.
Yeah, freedom to choose. Freedom to be yourself. And these days, we actually don't have a lot of that. People are actually afraid to be themselves because of the potential backlash of people who just don't want to let you be yourself. People forget that we all have different upbringings, different cultures, different points of view on almost everything. And now your freedoms have technically been taken away by society, even if it's not legalistic or, a process that you went through, but it's just an invisible pressure put on top of you that lets you, we know about code switching. That's a attack on your freedom.
Absolutely.
That you've embraced. That's crazy. You've embraced that I can't even think that prison of a mindset that you have to be
a certain way. Yeah,
to fit in or to be accepted.
Yeah, I kind of want to stay right there for a second.
Yeah,
because in the workplace, especially as a person of color or specifically a Black person, we do a lot of code switching, and it's so normal to us that we don't even realize that it's truly an art.
Yeah,
like I can talk to you and talk how I talk. And then a non-person of color can walk in the room and my entire persona is just different.
Right.
And it's like, well, why do I feel like I have to even do that?
Yeah.
What about the authentic version of me am I afraid to show you? Or not necessarily afraid, but like, why am I not able to just talk how I talk? Like I talk like this.
Yeah.
I should be able to just go to work and talk how I talk. and not feel like I have to change it. So I guess the deeper question is, why do we feel like we have to do that?
And even be deeper than that, is that just an American thing? Think about somebody from Africa coming over here. Are they code switching?
No.
They talk
how they talk. I mean, well, I guess that could technically be our ideology or understanding, because we're not in Africa. We don't know how they talk amongst themselves.
True.
So to us, because we hear them talking an accent, it's like, oh, well, they're not being any different than they would be in their own country. But you don't really know that, because for one, you don't speak the language. So they're already code switching by coming over here and talking in a whole different language.
Yeah.
And then two, they're also code switching because now they have to adapt to the norms here, because the norms here are not the norms there.
That's crazy.
So, man, you just helped me unpack all that.
Yeah, that's worth diving into. I think anybody that has any type of data on that can kind of weigh in.
Absolutely.
I mean, code switching. I would say code switching is a term used directly in regard to feeling less than. I should say, because I don't want that to get in the way of respect. You want to, like, when you're talking to somebody that you respect or in regard. Yeah, you don't just come at them,
right?
Yeah, like they're your friend. But yeah, in regards to being held down in that mindset, that's what I need to know. Like, what other cultures do they do that?
You just made me think about something. I'm trying to figure out how to word this. So, like, this whole idea of code switching, it's like we're diluting who we are as though our authentic selves are not professional. Because most of the time when people code switch, it's because you're supposed to talk in a professional tone, and you're supposed, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's almost as if you're saying that your regular speaking voice is not good enough. Mm-hmm. Your regular conversations or dynamics are not professional enough. Mm-hmm. So you have to switch it on to make yourself appear a way. And I ain't gonna lie, in my mind, that screams you're trying to make yourself white. Because the way society paints things is, if you're proper, you're white. It's like a black person will say, why are you talking like a white person? Because you're speaking proper. Why do you equate properness with whiteness?
Right.
What is it about speaking proper that equates white?
And that's another thing too. Like, let's say you were hired by a white person, which normally that's the case.
Right.
But they're hiring you based on what you bring to the table.
Right.
And it's crazy that it could essentially be, I'm not going to say our fault because this is an oppression, but we walked into the interview fully switched. Okay. So it's not like we went in there raw and who we are and got the job, because honestly, the skill is still there. It doesn't leave based on how you speak. But imagine that. Imagine an actual group of people who all brought their skills, who didn't feel the need to walk on eggshells when it came to their the way they speak or dress or whatever.
I'm not gonna lie, I have this idea, and I could be wrong because I've never worked for a fully functioning or fully employed black company. So like a full blown black business where everybody is black from the top to the bottom. And so I can assume that the standards are different. And what I mean by that is, if I'm being interviewed by someone who looks like me and they work for a company owned by someone who looks like me and everybody around me look like me, I'm not going to feel the need to switch anything. I feel like I can be myself. For example, at a job that I had, I won't name what job, I had 2 interviews. I had one interview with the white guy and a second interview with the black guy. With the white guy, I had noticed the switch. With the black guy, I noticed that I didn't feel the need to switch, which is why I'm saying this. It's almost like when we see a black person, it's almost like the comfortability comes in and you feel like they will understand where you're coming from. They won't call that unprofessional because they understand it. So when you're amongst this person, you can be yourself, whether they're your boss or the CEO or what. But when a non-black person walks in, now you're changing your speech and the way you carry yourself. Like, yeah.
You know what's funny? even you, if you were interviewed by a black person, and let's say the owner was, a white person. Let's say the white person walks into your interview. I bet both of you
will switch. And you want to know how I know that's true? Okay, I'll take it to a different level. When I was in high school, I had a black teacher. Love her to death. I will not name her. Great code switcher, might I add. In her class, I could be literally myself. I mean, down to the bone.
Right.
But she versed us on how to be should an administrator walk up in this classroom.
Oh, wow.
You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So we might be walking around talking how we talk, and she gonna teach how she teach, which is not typically the way they want you to teach.
Right.
And so she would always tell us, if an administrator walk in that door, open your book. And I was always the designated reader, so I always had to be on alert.
Right.
As soon as the administrator walk in, I'm gonna open my book and I'm just gonna start reading out loud like we was talking about whatever. So we collectively code switched as a class.
That's crazy.
Mind you, everybody in my class was black with the exception of maybe 5 people. And out of those 5 people, like 3 of them were Hispanic. So they also, in a sense, from a minority standpoint, understood.
Yeah.
The 2 white people was like, what? I remember that so vivid. They was like, what? And I remember saying, just follow my lead. And nobody else had that question, though. The Hispanics didn't ask. The black people didn't ask. It's like we all had a universal understanding of there's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah, that's right.
And if certain people walk in here, you have to make sure you are doing your job.
Bro, take that back to how slaves. Come on. You see?
Come on, go ahead. I see where you're going. Go ahead.
Whenever such and such come by, we need to act different.
Absolutely.
Look like you're doing this. That's so crazy. How it can travel over time. Oh my God. So it's safe to say throughout this little research that we've just done, code switching could have come from slavery.
I think it did. I mean, you know about the laughing barrel?
That's what I was thinking about.
Exactly. Same thing.
Yep.
And it's so deeply rooted in us. It's at this point, it's genetic because it's in our DNA. This is so deeply rooted that it's passed down generation to generation, not by word of mouth particularly, but you just instinct almost, like you just know.
Yeah.
You just know, like, I don't know. I can't even explain it because I could go up to a little kid and they'll have pretty much the same understanding. They know how to act and when to act and around who to act, you know?
That's crazy that we've been brainwashed into thinking that being who we are naturally is not acceptable.
I'll take it even further. I was going to say, I think about how we as people, we try to adapt, right? We try to adapt to our environment. We kind of look at how people are and how people interact. And that's how we decide whether or not we need to code switch. I've been in situations where I thought I needed to code switch, and then I would get around the said people and realize I can be myself. But again, this goes back to professionalism. What is it about the way we speak as black people, because they call the things we say slang, but when a non-black person comes up with some terminology, it's like, oh, that's a cool, trendy thing to say. But when we say it, that's ghetto, that's slang, whatever. I talked about these things in my book. But anyway, it's like, what is it about blackness that make people say negative things or equate it with negative things? Like, why is it that us spelling the word what without an H, why is that ghetto? Because mind you, African Americans, we had our own dialect.
Yeah.
And it's actually a real language, but they're going to tell you and teach you that it was in an improper language. Therefore, you're thinking of it as slang and you're thinking of it as not proper English. It's not even English. It's American vernacular English. It's not the same. But in the same breath, they say, you know, oh, that's ghetto or whatever. But then you get on TikTok and they're emulating all of this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
They're talking like you. They're doing the hand motions, all of that. And it's almost like a spit in the face, a slap in the face. And for me, as an author, as a writer who have written about these types of things, like hearing it out loud again, I ain't gonna lie, it's kind of pissed me off a little bit, because it's like, what is it about our blackness that you feel the need to tell us to tone it down?
Right.
Like, what is it about the way we speak, the way we slur words, the way we spell words that make you so uncomfortable to the point where you want to say, oh, that's not proper English?
Right.
Because we can go to Britain right now and they're going to tell you you're not speaking proper English.
Yeah. That's the fact.
So it's like there's different variations of English. It's not just American English. First of all, y'all stole this language from a whole nother country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then on top of that, like English itself was derived from multiple other languages.
Yep.
But mind you, American English was derived from original English, which was derived from other shit. So
Yep.
nothing in America is even original. It's not even original.
No.
So it's always funny to me when they say things like, oh, it ain't pronounced like that. You don't say it like that.
Yeah.
What language are you even speaking? You're speaking American English? Well, I speak an American English and I speak African American vernacular English. We are not the same.
Yeah.
I'm speaking in a whole nother language. It's not that I'm ghetto. You don't know the language.
Yep.
That's not my problem, though.
Man, you mentioned about professionalism. I think that is just I'll call it right now a cape.
Yeah.
It's covering up what the issue really is, and
Agreed.
which it could be. I hate using this term like fear, like white people fear black people. I won't say that. I will say the fear of, because I think it is universal, the fear of revenge. You see what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying.
Because in order for the table, quote unquote, tables to be turned, there has to be some sort of. Now, we tried the Civil War the first time, but I wanted to unpack that. So, and that's why I say, normally if you're getting hired by a white male,
Right.
more often than
Right.
not.
Absolutely.
How the pyramid of the working class of America is set up, and it's set up. I would say like slavery, but slavery that's not much of a pyramid as it is a bottom level and a top.
Right.
Okay, and the top was always the supervisor or the manager, and the rest were workers.
Mm-hmm.
And now, through time, I think there was Eddie Griffin that said they won't call you the N-word to your face. They have another way of saying it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, your application didn't meet our standards.
It's like, oh, you're a nigger,
Yeah.
basically.
But even if they let you in, that pyramid still exists.
And honestly, if they let you in, it's probably because they need to meet that quota, diversity quota. They have to have certain ethnic groups, or they will be considered not in compliance.
Right.
And they don't want to get that kind of penalty because all kinds of lawsuits and all kinds of other things will go behind that. Because mind you, if they don't have any inclusion and you can prove you've been applying and you're a qualified candidate, it's showing that they are intentionally not hiring you.
Oh, and you got to go. You got to take that pretty far, because you can't talk to HR.
Oh, I know.
HR's job is to protect the company.
Exactly.
First.
So you have to go beyond them. You have to go the legal route.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that entails a whole lot of other issues and other things that you got to deal with. But sometimes you got to go that far to make
Facts.
change happen, though.
Facts.
And I think, in my opinion, we don't go far enough.
Yeah.
It's almost like, okay, well, F this job, I'm just going to move on. Well, no, F that job, you can move on, but somebody going to pay.
Right.
Somebody's going to have to pay for what was done.
Yep. A lot of this whole country has been built on, oh, what, they treated me this way, they treated me horrible, but I'm just gonna leave. And the oppressor's like, okay.
And then
I got
another
what
one,
I wanted.
somebody
Peace.
else is going to get hired. Like,
Yeah.
come on, man.
So you're right about that. So I mean, if you're thinking about leaving, and the people, please, listen with your spiritual ears.
Absolutely.
If you're thinking about leaving somewhere, leave thoroughly. Thoroughly. Everything that you thought about, don't just, because you're taking it with you. If you leave without it being done, people can call it closure, but closure is a one-way street. It's never going to be a two-way street. You're never going to get that apology that you're looking for. And even if you do, you're going to question if it's real. Mm-hmm. So closure is a one-way street. Closure is for you. Okay. So if you're going to leave thoroughly and do all that stuff you said you're going to do, except killing people. Don't do that.
Right. Please don't do that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is Dash and Dallas.
This is T.
And we're going to see you on the next episode. Y'all be safe out there.
We out.